Welcome back on the AM show. Time now for us to review not the newspapers, the news. No newspapers this morning, and it is common to find this, especially on a holiday like this. But of course, myriad stories that we can be able to get into, and I'll be doing that shortly with my guest. But as always, this segment is brought to you by Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. Here's what they're offering you. If you're a man, there are so many things you have to check within your system, your body. And if you aren't, at least get to know what's happening with your prostate, especially if you haven't reproduced yet. And they're offering you that for free, screening for free. If you're a woman, your fertility, people take it for granted, but so many things could be going on, especially if you haven't started giving birth yet. It isn't something to take for granted. So what is your fertility status again? Do you know? Which is why they are generous enough to offer you free screening on that as well. All you have to do, two options, either go to any of their branches or give them a call. Let's start with their branches. They are located here in Accra at Spintex, opposite the Shell signboard. In Kumasi, Kronomabwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex. There's Takrady Anaji Estate. There's Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa, and Esiama in Zimal. Their call lines, if you'd like to call them, are 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. But just the start of the news review, and joining me this morning, he's a development economist. He also is a senior lecturer at the University for Development Studies. I'm talking about none other than Dr. Michael Ayamga. He joins me this morning right here as we get into the major stories. And there he is, Dr. Ayamga. Good morning. And it's Good Friday.
Yeah, good morning, Ben. Always good to speak to you. And yes, Good Friday. We're anticipating a very good Easter, and hoping that at least it sheds some light on our year and then bring us hope as we move on. So we are all raised up for it.
You know, I'm Catholic, and today is a very meditative day for us. Ordinarily, by now, I would have been getting ready for the Stations of the Cross, the communal one, and others. But here we are, for love of God and country. But I'd like to start off with basically something that is dear to you, something that is a burning issue that you'd like to talk about. I always give this opportunity. So in about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, I'd like you to reflect on something you're very concerned about that you'd like to lead the way with. Over to you, Doc.
Yes, I think something that has struck me along the week, of course, is the distribution of gadgets, let me call them tablets, to secondary schools, and then christening it smart schools. And when we see things like this, they worry us, because if you are somebody who follows the trends all over the world and you see how we are simplifying and trivializing very important things and issues that have implications for the future of this country and for the future of families, I get exceptionally and exceedingly worried. Yes, it is good to give gadgets to students, but to belittle what smart education is, or let me call it more interactive learning platforms are, you only do a disservice to this country. And you cannot call what you are doing digitization of secondary schools, because before you can do that, first you have to look at the infrastructure and make sure that they are up to speed and they are uniform or almost close to uniformity across schools. Secondly, you have to train the trainers. So you have to probably orientate the teachers towards digitization, let them understand. And then you have to train the students. Then you have to digitize the content to ensure that all these things are compatible. You have the checks and balances in them, and you can actually facilitate learning. Now, to just jump to the very last component of digitization, which is actually giving students tablets here and there, worries me. And that is not how to do smart education. I believe that we should be a very serious nation. We cannot be a nation of slogans and catchy phrases. And when we start doing things, we just claim we are developing. And we did the same thing with the free SHS. And when we talked, people thought we were against it. I'm not against it. My kid has a tablet. My kid attends a school that has these platforms, and I appreciate them greatly. But what they have put in there is not close, is way beyond what we are doing. I have been trying to digitize our center. In fact, our center here at UDS has a DigiFace component.
Right.
And some of us years of lessons in Moodle. So you are able to interact with the student. You know what, when the student goes online, what he's doing, how many hours he spent there, the content he reviewed. You put in content, he puts in content. So there is that interactive thing. Currently, across our schools, we have one IT teacher that even sometimes to change the battery of a system or even to properly charge it, everybody is going to that fellow. The rest naturally do not understand anything. Then some of them have no light, some even don't have rooms to sit. And I wonder when it's raining, those under trees, what they're going to do with that tablet. So you have to look at this and you say, let's be honest with ourselves. Nobody is against digitizing education, but let's give meaning to it. Our tendency to rush for anything because there's opportunity for procurement, and then we just procure and don't care about the impact of the whole program on our country's development and on the individuals is problematic. So that is where I want to put this thing, that we need to be serious with whatever we do. A catchy phrase doesn't mean that something's happening. Calling our dilapidated secondary schools without textbooks, with grossly reduced teacher-student content, smart schools, is only an additional insult to parents who are now known to be paying more for alternative forms of instruction because of the challenges we are having with our education system. We just do this and call it smart school. To look at pumping all this money on tablets at this point in time, when there are other burning issues in the schools that we could be addressing, I say it's problematic, it is populist, and it's a lack of critical thinking as far as development education center is concerned. Lastly, I call for a national dialogue on education. I still think we have to do this because to allow this to the whims and caprices of anyone, you jump the next day and they are bringing a policy, you don't know which plan is coming from, which program it is following, and you cannot be toying with people's words like that. That random policies that comes into anybody's mind and our kids have to follow it. They don't get the chance to do it all over again. And if you have to take such policies, such decisions, you ought to be careful and ensure that we are up to speed. What we are doing now is creating the next generation of app users, a market for students who are learning actual science and doing actual digitalization elsewhere. It is problematic, and I hope that we policymakers and we those at the forefront of policy discourse take these things seriously and move away from the politicking. I am bearing the full brunt of teaching students who have not been adequately prepared to be taught. And the more I talk about this, it conveys the passion inside me. I don't want us to fail the next generation and to fail this country.
Well, thank you very much for those thoughts. I see someone watching us live. Princess, it's been a while. It's good to see you actually connecting with us live via the feed. But anyway, let me come to this. So when you go to myjoyonline.com, economy to rebound in 2024, manufacturing sector to recover strongly. That story is there. And having endured the worst economic turbulence, Ghana's economy is expected to rebound in 2024, according to IC research. Its inflation forecast suggests a non-linear but general decline in inflation towards the mid-teens by 2024, despite recent elevations in foreign exchange pressures. Now, the expected general disinflation outlook, it said, would sustain the recovery in the price-sensitive manufacturing sector in 2024 as a rebound to positive growth in 2023 from a contraction of 2.5% in 2022. And I'll just quote this portion and wrap with what the report says. It says, having endured the worst of recent economic shocks with the ongoing policy adjustments delivering modest signs of macro-level improvements, we perceive favorable conditions for a rebound in economic activity in 2024. But if you look at the exchange rate, if you look at current inflation, and I'm not just talking about the figures out there, because inflation is also relative depending on what you do and how you do it and what your purchases are and what your purchasing power is. You look at the taxes, look at everything in between, even our cocoa and how things are panning out, something I'm going to be talking about in my blunt thoughts. What is your reading? Do you subscribe to this report's conclusion that things are going to get better? And lest I forget, Dumso as well, which is impacting business. Your take.
Yes, Ben, you took the wind out of my sail. I looked at the general titling of this report, and they said the economy to rebound in 2024. We are in March 2024. That is the first quarter. So when they are saying 2024, what do they mean? Secondly, they haven't told us what is happening in the economy. That is the source of this rebounding, why manufacturing is going to grow. And they say it's their perception. So as it's a perception, everybody has a perception. This is not a robust and scientific review as far as I am concerned, because even if you are just taking a cursory look at the economic trajectory of most of the trajectory of most of the economic fundamentals, you realize that we still have to worry. There are projections that we may end the year with inflation still around 27-28%. That is, instead of going down steadily and providing confidence by maintaining a downward trend, it is currently sporadic, going up, coming down, and no real expectations that can be formed regarding it. That is a key.
You were talking about scientific, so this is what they are saying. Our optimism hinges on the ongoing investment and expansion in network infrastructure by the major telecom sector operators, while demand for data services, this is one of them, continues to grow. We also expect demand for hospitality and transport services to strengthen on the back of the upcoming electioneering activities in the lead up to the December elections. Consequently, we believe the slowing momentum in Ghana's growth rate has bottomed out, with the economy primed for a modest recovery in 2024. We thus reiterate our 2024 growth forecast range of 2.8% to 3.8%, with a midpoint of 3.3%. It's concluded.
Yes, that's why I still say the data, the research is not scientific one. They are all based on perceptions and not real concrete data. You are talking about investment in network expansion. Definitely, how does that tie in? And to what extent is our economic growth hinged on network? That is one question you need to ask. And I just think that this is probably mere conjecture. Christmas periods come with their own pressure on inflation. They come with their own issues on importation. So yes, you are thinking that it is possible to experience some spike in maybe some sectors, but that is not an issue of an economic rebound. You cannot describe a sporadic or a random movement in the economic trajectory as a trend. And when you say rebound, it means something has hit the base and it is now on an upward trend. What they are talking about is a festive season and an event having a momentary impact on the economy. These are two different things. And I don't, as a researcher myself, I don't want to rubbish people's efforts, because we know sometimes it takes a lot to do this. But I think that the findings here and the approach here suffers from thorough deficiencies in the methodology they have applied. As I was indicating, investment is key. And for any nation to grow, we must have positive net investment. That is fundamental. We need to invest, for example, to reduce depreciation of the capitals we have, and then to also increase the efficiency of the capital. We have to have a reducing capital output ratio to actually significantly grow. As we are talking consistently, we have been recording the lowest, some of the lowest capital investments, even in our budgets. So you want to ask, what is the source of that growth is problematic. You already mentioned the taxes. Corporate Ghana now are facing significant challenges staying afloat. And if you follow the trend, the tendency is for business to relocate to other production areas and seek to import to Ghana rather than moving here to set up the production. So on that even basic thought, what is the source of that optimism? Everybody can be optimistic because we are patriotic. We want our country to be good for us to be able to afford things for our families. So if you are sharing optimism, fine, but I don't want it to be projected as scientific evidence because the science is not in this publication as I see it. The description is somebody trying to maybe please certain quarters and affect the discourse. But I don't think we are there. Then we need to be worried, given that we have exhausted a lot of the IMF receipts we are expecting. Most of the foreign exchange receipts we are expecting as far as the IMF program is concerned. They are coming in, the World Bank funds are coming in, and the exchange rate is still not responding the way we expect. The economy is not responding the way we expect. And it's problematic. You look at these things and you see that investors are worried that we have not been spending. And in order for us to grow, we have to spend in the right areas that we have not done. There is still no room to reduce any tax for corporate Ghana. And that is why I was surprised that Guta of all people were jumping that they embraced the vice president's tax plan. Then I'm asking, yes, if we are dealing with maybe some market women where I was born, maybe we can understand. They don't look at that data. But you are talking of Guta industry players.
I think that statement is a bit unfair, especially to the likes of the president, because I mean, you know of his academic prowess and all of that. I don't think they took it lightly. And to be fair to them, Doc, they did say that they were hoping that what he said he would actually execute. It wasn't as though they were latching onto it and saying they would want these political parties and their leaders to do things that they would want. And the mere fact that the vice president was alluding to something they were in tune with was a step in the right direction.
Yes, Ben, that's why I am saying that if it is where maybe I was born and we are looking at the small market there, the actors may jump at it. But you need to look at, I will just move away, use language of a technical. If you look at the posturing of the vice president and his actions, they are not things that project someone who reduces taxes when it comes to his actions. His lectures are tax reductions. His policies implemented by the economic management team that he has led has introduced the most crippling tax in history. And he is on record to have brought in more net tax increases than they are taking away. So based on his posturing, that is a problem. Secondly, you look at the imperatives. We are a nation that is looking to bring in every tax CD we can get. Because you want to ask yourself, how is he going to finance those tax reductions? And that is what I expect industry players and journalists to be asking. Because there is no room. You look at the economy now, and anything that can be taxed has been overtaxed. And our tax to expenditure ratio is still not encouraging. We are still getting these IMF tranches based on, let me say, goodwill to a large degree. So you cannot just say he says he reduced tax. You have to ask whether it is possible to do it. And I don't think it's possible to do it because we have no financing it. Once we are reducing taxes, we have to ask ourselves, where is the money going to come from to fill the huge hole that we are going to create for these revenue deficits?
Right.
Because then government has to spend to invest, as you rightly indicated, and those investments must be financed by receipts. We are out of the credit markets, and it is unlikely we'll get back there anytime soon.
Right.
So if you now take this into consideration, you want to ask somebody, yes, it is good to say you reduce taxes, but looking at the framework, you yourself, your orientation and your posturing, your actions in government, plus the imperatives, the practicalities within the economy, is it possible for somebody to be saying that
right.
you reduce the kind of
Doc,
the answer is no.
Doc, so we have to make the interaction bite-sized so that we can also look at a compound of other issues. Just something I heard you say that, and I don't want a response on that, but I heard you say something about we are even getting the tranches of the IMF money being doled out to us on the back of goodwill. There may be some goodwill. We've seen some of us, for example, the flying in of the IMF boss, Kristalina Georgieva, over a weekend to come here. Some have suggested that means things are not exactly going well. But our country has also ticked certain boxes in terms of getting these sums of money. So I think it's a bit unfair when you say we are getting it maybe solely or predominantly based on goodwill. But let's move away from there. Government suspends implementation of price stabilization and recovery levy on petroleum products. And the story, again, on myjoyonline.com says, government has directed the National Petroleum Authority to suspend the implementation of price stabilization and recovery levy, PSRL, on price buildup on petroleum products. Now, this will freeze the implementation of the levy charged on every liter of petroleum products and kilogram of LPG from Monday, April the 1st to June the 30th of 2024. It was contained in a letter from the National Petroleum Authority to all the players in the oil marketing and distribution space in the country. Do you think, looking at the prices of fuel, which have been going up, inching up a bit more recently, do you think this will act in any way to cushion the ordinary person, patronizing LPG or purchasing fuel at the pumps? Briefly on that.
Then without talking about the economic implications, any opportunity to give a Ghanaian now a person is welcome. And I welcome the move. It's rather too late. You see, when we were calling for a review of these taxes, especially in the petroleum pricing formula, we wanted to form expectations. We wanted to influence, let's say, economic growth. If you do it early enough and the economy don't suffer the effect, any small decrease in petroleum prices brings a significant benefit because the economy is growing. Now you have reached a point where we have lost control and we want to make infinitesimal changes to prices of petroleum. It is not going to significantly affect cost of petroleum. And now we realize that those we are working with, those in the transportation sector, respond to these quantum changes. So while the increments are coming in leaps and bounds because the economy is out of control, the sector, we have lost control over it. There are a whole lot of inefficiency issues that lead to our inability to rightly pay for these products that we are bringing in. So there is a huge challenge to me as far as I'm concerned. As I said, I welcome it, but it is not going to bring in any needed result. That is not going to make a driver very happy that he goes and he gets like 10, 20 pesos out of 4-5 gallons of sweet he has bought. That is rather too little, too late for me.
Let's look at some other stories, and I'll go to this one. I'll just read in passing and add it to another story I'll get into. Then I'll take your responses. Floods, and we're approaching that season again. Floods were exposed, but my team and I are, quote, running to catch up. That is Kojo Pongkroma saying so. And of course, works and housing in the picture. But let me get into the story. The Tema General Hospital story. If a baby died, it wasn't because of Dumso. The Ghana Health Service Accra director has said so. Now, if you know the story, and it's one of the issues on the back of Dumso that I'm going to be looking at when it comes to my blunt thoughts for today. The Greater Accra Regional Director of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Akosia Ejay Owusu Sapong, has dismissed claims A 3-day-old baby died at the Tema General Hospital in the evening of Tuesday, March 26, due to a power outage. She explained that investigations from the hospital confirmed a power outage on Tuesday evening, during which their generators initially functioned, but later encountered a fault that took approximately 2 hours to rectify. In an interview with Joy News on Thursday, that is yesterday, Dr. Usisapon stated that the hospital machines or equipment had power storage, ensuring continuous treatment of patients or babies on monitors or oxygen during the power outage. But if you read the statement from the hospital, it also says the one at the NICU, the neonatal intensive care unit, started off, had a problem. It took 2 hours for them to rectify that situation. The Tema General Hospital in that statement confirms that no baby, at least those who were in the incubators, I hear they were very uncomfortable. Imagine them, newly born babies, incubated, and having to go through, the system not working. None of them died per the Tema General Hospital. But here we are hearing of a death, and the Greater Accra, director is saying it wasn't related to that. At least that is corroborated by the statement of the Tema General Hospital. But generally, what does this do to our health setup? Because 2 hours is a long time. Imagine someone having surgery. 10 minutes, 20 minutes, blood gushing out, not being able to complete the procedure could mean death. Your quick take on these two matters.
Yeah, Ben, we need to be fair and very honest here. And as I've said, others can make that statement. If I make it, I can get away with it. Even in the midst of stable power supplies, power issues or emerge that has to do with either the facility's internal systems and controls, or maybe a random malfunction of machines. These things happen. And as we sit now, there are places where the power is off, but the health units are working, or the baby incubators are working. So if the hospital had done its homework well, put in the systems and balances to ensure that we have some backup supply, especially against the backdrop that we have done so. Where I can blame the DUMSO is the lack of clarity. You haven't told us that we are in DUMSO. There is no timetable. When I know there is DUMSO and I'm leaving, I ask my young men that, how is our petrol situation? Have we checked the generator? I'm anticipating it. But when you don't, and it looks like everything is okay, people don't put in measures to curtail some of these things. So that is the only reason I would say maybe DUMSO might have had a role to play. That is the cavalier nature of the energy ministry and the kind of language that is being put out there doesn't help anybody and doesn't help government in dealing with this issue. So I would say that they need to be very clear, very forthright with the Ghanaians as far as the DUMSO is concerned.
Right.
But to blame this occurrence on just the alone, not fair. I think that even in the midst of a stable power supply, this thing can occur. The hospital has to look at its internal systems, ensure that a place like that doesn't even only have a standby generator, but has some very close power supply system that somebody can just turn on in case the two systems fail.
Right,
So
and that the 24-year-old mother involved had a cesarean section, and she actually revealed that when she went to see her newborn son, a doctor told her the child, and I'm talking about the Tema General Hospital, a doctor told her the child could not survive due to the non-functioning medical equipment on the back of the power outage. So it could have been a communication issue. But on the back of that, I have seen that Gridco, there is a power outage announcement, two of them from the ECG, Tema region, dated yesterday actually, where the ECG is informing customers and the general public that Gridco has reduced power to their Mobole bulk supply point, resulting in outages in many areas. Afienya Quarries, Christian International School, Ochebreku, Okushibri, Jerusalem, Apollonia City, Katamanso, all the way to Star Steel and Dodowa switching station. So if you've not heard of that situation yet, the ECG is saying based on Gridco's reduced power supply to that station, the Mobole bulk supply point, all of these areas, I'm sure you can go to the website of the ECG, are going to be affected. And there's another one also stating, also dated the 28th day of March, which is yesterday, suggesting that, let me quickly get to it, because of the same reduction in power supply to their smelter 2 bulk supply point, Wanghen Cement, Goyle Bitumen Plant, Leyland Paints, Oyoko Europass, Japan Motors, Mankwadze Fisheries, Ginseng, Akasanoma, and mind you, all these places I'm mentioning are industry-based, so you see what's going to happen there. Medical stores, cocoa processing, Imani Brothers, Amandi, Asempa Cold Stores, all the way to Golden Jubilee Terminals Community 2, Cocoa Board Warehouse, and its environs are going to face some power challenges, which means that they may have to let their generators or plants kick in, which could also affect the cost of whatever they produce. But very quickly, in some 30 seconds, Doc, do you have your Doomsaw timetable yet? Have you crafted yours?
Yes, I've made one following the advice of Napo. So my young man here, we've actually programmed that every day we're going to get some 2-3 hours deficit in power. At least, you know, mostly the Doomsaw don't hit Northern Ghana too much because we're a small component of the power consumption, and sometimes putting lights off here doesn't actually lead to the consumption. So a lot of the places still normally get some 3, 4, 5, 6 hours of electricity, even in the peak of Doomsaw. So I'm making plans for those things. But you see, that is the problem here. We just read a story about this power supply reductions. And the information is not being presented as reduction. Because you see, when there's this reduction, you have to tell people this is the cost, this is how long it's going to last, and this is what we are supposed to do for the power supply situation. Now, the leaders don't want to admit that there is Doomsaw, so they can't hold people accountable when they put off lights. So that is a chaotic situation we are having here. Yes, we need to admit that we have power supply challenges, and let's make a plan for it. We used much in the past, but this is crippling our economy. And yes, I have a Doomsaw timetable, and I thank the Honorable Matthew Prempe for his blunt advice that we should do our own timetables.
Right. There's this story, and that's how I'm going to end. 2 stories, not necessarily soliciting any responses, but that very sad situation in South Africa where a girl, 8, is the only survivor as 45 people were killed in a bus crash. And this one, President Akufo-Addo, and I'll be celebrating him shortly. I look forward to working closely with President-elect Faye, that is Bassirou Faye, to enhance Ghanaian-Senegalese relations. I am so proud of that 44-year-old, and I honestly wish him the very best. Akufo-Addo says he's looking forward to working with him. Any final thoughts, Dr. Ayamga, before you take leave of us? Today actually is the president's birthday. Any words for him? In less than a minute, we have to go.
Yeah, he's a father of the nation, a grandfather. I wish him a happy birthday. I hope that he stays strong so that he doesn't leave office with a lot of challenges that we soon have to be dealing with the president, former president, and so on. So I wish him a happy birthday. I know he is overwhelmed with tasks, and we cannot say he is not doing his best. It's just not enough. So I hope that his last few months in power, he sees them as a chance to turn around his legacy and begin to move away from overly partisan and political orientation to a more national outlook that allows us us to feel part of Ghana and
Okay.
see national development as all of us have all responsibility.
All right.
If he works well this last 6 months, I'm sure he may be able to salvage his image. As it is now, many people are not too optimistic and too happy with him.
All right. Doc, thank you so much for joining us for breakfast this morning. And I've been interacting with development economist and senior lecturer at the University for Development Studies, Dr. Michael Ayamga. Of course, I'd like to wish the first gentleman of the land, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, a happy birthday. Today he turns 80. I would have wished that the circumstances in our country were different at this time, but it is his birthday. I'll reserve the bashing for my blunt thoughts. But for now, we celebrate you, Mr. President. May you live long to see a better Ghana. And I'd also like to celebrate Marcia Kafui Akoto. Today is your birthday. You're hitting that floor, getting deeper into it. I wish you the very best in life. God bless and keep you. Before we veer into sports, this segment always brought to you courtesy of Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. They're offering you, as always, if you're a man, prostate screening for free. If you're a woman, fertility screening for free at any of their branches. Here in Accra, at Spintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi, Kronoma, here, behind the Angel Educational Complex, Takrady Anaji State, Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanswa, and the Siama and Zama. Their call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, bringing us to the end of the news review. And they say the end to chronic disease. But up next, we serve you sports. Do stay.